This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'll be talking to Angel Krause about the Goonies and the Monster Squad for my 80s kindertrauma series. But first, it's time to talk to Donna about the stuff we got into this last week. How's it going, Donna?
Hey, Robert, it's going pretty well. I'm just so happy we are in the middle of October, about to be in the middle.
Yeah, it's
So
finally
glad.
starting to cool down here a little bit. It's we always talk about the weather at the top of the episode of apparently. But
Mm-hmm.
it's been in the 80s. Even today it's going to be 81 as the high, but the rest of this week is going to be in the low 70s to mid 60s. So I'm excited for that. It's finally hoodie weather. Um
You're ready to bust out those hoodies?
I'm ready. I mean, I've had to already. Like, if I'm out, like on yesterday, like the last two nights at work, I had to actually take my jacket with me because it gets cold once the sun goes down. It actually started dipping to, into the 60s. Even was like 50 something on Friday night. I was
Oh,
like, okay, I
nice.
really needed a jacket. Um, but yeah, no. So it's finally happening. It's finally cooling down around here. I'm so excited. But yeah, other than that, it's finally starting to feel like October.
Yep.
Um, it's getting closer. We're like little over 2 weeks away from Halloween. We're watching trying to watch lots of horror. I'm not succeeding very well at it, but but yeah, no, it's definitely doing as much as I can.
I've
So
been posting a horror watch every
I
day
know.
until up till Halloween. And I mean, I watch horror all the time, but
Yeah.
it just started, I think, towards the end of September, we started actually just watching a bunch of horror movies and just consistently watching something. So it's been interesting because I'm trying to watch stuff that my husband doesn't normally watch, and also
Right.
the favorites. I've been saving a lot of the old favorites for last. So towards the end of October, it'll be more of like American Werewolf in London, The Thing. Everybody's tired of me watching The Thing, so I'm just trying to pad that out until the end
Right.
of the month. But we've been trying to get into some different things. So I've been enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give the I've been trying to watch some new stuff here and there. I'm trying to get caught up on some 2024 stuff so that I've watched as much as I can before our top 10 of the year.
Right.
But which I don't think it's gonna change overly too much. There might be a couple of entries coming up that we might see about but I'm not positive on what, if anything, that's going to change. Uh, but um, but I definitely trying to fit some stuff in. I think I'm gonna watch what's it called? Watch an Evil Dead or two, of course, before the end of the
Mhm.
month. I gotta fit in a couple of those. I think I'm gonna watch the 2013, maybe Evil Dead Rise again. Watch the two newest ones.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. But yeah, so it should be a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun so far. So, but yeah, that being said, I did watch one movie this week. I didn't, there wasn't I didn't get to go out. It's been kind of a rough couple of weeks movie wise for me
Mhm.
going out to movies. But so I've been trying to do what I can inside. But this last week, the new Hellboy, The Crooked Man, came out to VOD. So I plunked down my $20 and I bought that so that I could watch it because I'm a big Hellboy fan. I've been a
Right.
fan of the comic books since they debuted in 1994. It is the 30th anniversary of Hellboy this year. So it was a great time for a new movie to come out. And this movie's the most faithful in terms of being a direct adaptation of a story from the comic books. They tweak it a little bit.
Mhm.
It's an adaptation. Something I kind of want to get into at the end of the episode. But they do a good job at it. I think it's really well done. I think the guy who's playing Hellboy is actually really good. Um, Jack Kesey. So I was like, here's the thing. I actually like every version of Hellboy in live action.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm not one of those people who's like, oh well, Del Toro's is the best and nobody else can beat his. I don't believe that. I think Ron Perlman did great. I think David Harbour did great, and I think Jack Kesey did great. They're all just
Oh,
different
good.
variations on a theme. So
Right.
I think that's what's fun about it. I just like seeing Hellboy. So it was a lot of fun. This one's a lot scarier in terms of like it's more of a direct horror movie. It's very
Oh, nice.
folk horror. Um, and it's just Hellboy in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains, just you know, trying to defeat some spooky shenanigans. So, but yeah, no,
Well,
it's
I'm
a lot of
glad you said
fun.
that was good.
Yeah, yeah. So once if it goes to streaming or anything, or if anybody wants to, if you've been on the fence about it, yeah, definitely. I think it's worth it. And a lot of people online are actually giving it good reviews. A lot of actual Hellboy fans are giving it good reviews. So that's been really nice to see. So, so what do you have
Well,
for me today?
I was telling you before we started recording, it's slim pickings on my end, so I didn't really have a whole lot. But there is a movie that is actually available on Amazon if you want to rent it for $6 or purchase it for 14. I would definitely rent it. It's one called Seven Cemeteries, and
Hmm,
I don't know if you've heard of this one. I
I've
was
not.
a little bit sold because it was a Western horror, but
Of
it's
course.
it's made by the director of the Feast movies. I don't know if you've ever seen those or if
Oh,
you like
okay.
those. So John Gulager is the
Yeah.
director, but Danny Trejo is in this one, and he's playing a recent parolee who tries to help a woman save her ranch from a ruthless drug lord. But all of his, I guess, former gang members are dead. So he has to get a bruja to help him resurrect all of these people so that they can help. So it's a little bit of like the Seven Samurai,
Yeah.
it's got all of these little cute things about it. It's not a great movie, but it is a pretty fun movie. But the trailer is out if you want to look at the
Okay.
trailer and kind of judge from that. I mean, it is very low budget, but there's a lot of really funny things going on in it, and I really enjoyed seeing Danny Trejo just kind of rule this little gang of people the best he can. This undead gang. It's like I said, it's low budget, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. That sounds like fun. Sounds like a good
Yeah,
good take on the Seven Samurai or
yeah, it's
Magnificent Seven. Yeah.
Magnificent Seven as well. Yeah, it's very cute and very much aware that it's a low budget horror. People are hamming it up, but
Yeah.
the actors really look like they're having a lot of fun playing these undead things, doing these crazy kind of gang things in it. It's hilarious.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out the trailer on that one.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
only 6.99 to rent, so you're not really
yeah,
hurting anything if you plunk
you're
down
right.
$7 for it.
Right? It's cheaper than going to the movies.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I also have a trailer. The final trailer for Heretic came out this last week.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. It looks so good. This is the Hugh Grant and Sophie Thatcher horror movie where he takes these two girls who come to his house and traps them inside. Um, so it looks interesting. Hugh Grant getting to play a villain just looks it's so like it's so funny to see him now because he's been playing more bad guys in the last few
Mhm.
years. And it's like I really wish he'd been able to, and he tried to. He tried to do that back in his younger days, but everybody just was like, "Nah, let's just keep putting him as the romantic lead," and it made him a lot of money. So that's what's good. But it's nice to see him getting to stretch out and actually play these bad guys because he's actually really good at it. So, which isn't really that big of a stretch because if you've seen any of his romantic comedies, he was always kind of like the kind of like the, I wouldn't say the bad boy, but like definitely the cad,
Hmm.
the kind of guy who just was like sort of bad. He was a good guy down at heart, but he had rough edges.
I
So
really like the concept of that film too, because you have
yeah.
two missionaries coming to this man's house and thinking that they're going to enlighten him in some way, and he
Hmm.
already is prepared to like rock their faith is
Yeah.
really going to be messed up by
Yeah.
the
No,
end
it's
of this
about
movie.
testing their faith. Yeah. So yeah, so it looks really interesting. I'm excited for this one. That's definitely going to be a movie theater watch for sure. All right, what else do you got for me?
Well, one that you probably already know about is that they announced there is going to be a sequel for Ready or Not.
I
Um,
did see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Radio Silence, and they did announce that Samara Weaving is coming back, and she's
Yeah.
even stated that she would love this to be a franchise.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, and she's a horror darling anyway.
Oh, for
She's
sure.
actually in that movie that we talked about that's coming to Shutter pretty
Yeah, Azrael.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see that. But that was something I was so excited for. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot see. I'm trying to figure out how are they going to make a sequel to this though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like yeah.
If the whole family, if the whole family is completely gone, what is there an extra relative that didn't make it to the
Right.
party, or
Yeah.
what's going on here?
A different
But
family now. What's
yeah,
going
I'm
on? Is she
I'm
just going to
all
be
for
like
it.
hunting down all the remnants of the devil? So
But I mean, it'll be interesting. I pretty much am sold on whatever they do at this point, so I'm excited for it.
yeah, no, for sure. Definitely anytime Samara Weaving's in a horror movie, it's always going to be good. I know because she's been in so many good roles in
Hmm.
horror movies. So yeah, no, that'll be exciting to see. All right, so speaking of horror, because this is a horror podcast, um, there's the new trailer for In Search of Darkness, 1990 to 1994 came out. It's like the final trailer for it. Um, that It's a documentary about horror movies from 1990 to 1994. If anybody doesn't know, the In Search of Darkness documentary series, there were 3 volumes before that went through the 80s, and this one is, I guess, it's going to be a 2 volume series that'll go through the 90s. And so it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. They got a lot of good people talking in this one: Alex Winter, David Dashmalchian, Mike Flanagan. So they got some big names for this now. Not that they didn't before, but they got like you know pretty big names for this. So
Right.
it'll be exciting to check out. They'll be talking about what they call the lost decade of horror. So which I don't feel is true. Maybe the first couple of years of it. but but even then there were some titanic things that came out in the early 90s that so it'll be cool to see them talking about that stuff like Candyman and Bram Stoker's Dracula and Army of Darkness. So
Yeah, I'm always
bunch of my
excited.
favorites.
I'm always excited when they come out with these docs because
Oh
my
man.
my kids and I are like, you could put these on one Sunday or Saturday and just let them play all day
Yeah.
and be like, oh man, I really want to watch that movie again.
You
You start getting
Well,
excited
and they're
about them.
super long too. Like I think the first one was like 3.5 hours, and then like
Yeah,
the last one of the 80s ones was like 5 hours long. So
yeah,
it's
it's
like
it's
they are
good.
super long volumes. So you get your money's worth if you buy these. Now, like, this is available to buy pre-order right now. With a bundle of like stuff, you get like a couple of posters, and you get like a digital copy of the movie and stuff. So it's a bundle of good stuff to
Hmm.
get, that is really cool. I've been doing it. You get your name at the end of the movie. I've literally been pre-ordering these since the I didn't catch it on the very first one, but on the first one they made an Elvira edition. So I've literally been doing every version of the Elvira version and then every version of them since in the regular versions as well. So in Search of Darkness 2 and 3, I also had my stuff in there. So I enjoy these documentaries a lot because they're a lot of fun. They're, like you said, they're easy to just kind of put on in the background, just kind of watch if you've already seen them. But if you haven't already
Right.
seen them, they're a lot of fun. Being that they're like 4 or 5 hours long, kind of have to watch them in like
In
spurts
pieces,
in
yeah.
pieces anyway. So that's what's nice. So, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I already pre-ordered mine like last year of this, so I'm glad it's finally about to come out. I think they're gonna be sending it out in December. So, if you want to get all the extra goodies, then it's a great way to get it now. But you don't care about any of that stuff, I'm sure they'll have it for sale later as well.
It's also a great way for you to find about movies
Oh,
that
for
you may
sure.
not be aware of. Like
Yeah, there's a ton of
I
80s movies I had never seen. So like I have a whole list of things that I need to go based on these documentaries that I'm like, okay, I got to go back and rewatch all this stuff.
Yeah,
So,
basically that's how I found out about Jackie Kong. 'Cause I'd never heard
yeah,
of any. I'd heard of the movie Blood Diner, but I never watched it. And
yeah.
so after seeing her talk about it and seeing them talk, I was like, okay, I'm sold. I've got to see this movie. And now I'm like the hugest fan of hers. Like I just bought some comics that she made, and
Oh, that's cool.
it's a deep dive. I cannot stop, and I want more female directors to be like this. I mean, because she's putting nudity and like graphic violence and not that we don't get that from female horror directors, but none on the level of Jackie Kong. She was just
Yeah,
crazy out there for the 80s. That was just wild. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, the 90s has me super excited. I hope they
Oh,
go into a
yeah.
lot of the
Oh, they're going to be going
Stuart
into a
Gordon
lot of,
stuff, and
yeah,
oh my gosh,
a
cannot
lot
wait.
of the direct to video stuff and everything like that. It was a huge direct to video era. So yeah, it'll be very interesting for sure. All right. What else you got for me? Anything else?
Yeah, actually, I do have something I hope that you're interested in, and I hope you haven't heard of, but you're the comic person, so you
Oh, yeah.
probably have. So, we are actually getting from Image Comics in 2025 the seasons. Have you heard about this?
No.
So glad you have not heard about this because now I get to tell you.
Yeah. I'm
So,
intrigued.
yeah, so the seasons, it's done by Rick Remender, and I
Okay.
think he's writing it, and Paul Azaceta. He does a lot of the he did a lot of art for The Walking Dead. He did
Yeah.
art
He did
for
the
Outcast.
outcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So basically, the seasons is right up both of our wheelbarrow. Can you tell I haven't had coffee today? I didn't have coffee today, y'all.
Oh
My
no.
coffee maker's broken, so I have to go out and buy one like right after this. But anyhow, what's in store? We have these four sisters: summer, winter, spring, and autumn. That's their names. They're the season
Mm.
sisters, and they just happen to be daughters of very world-renowned detectives. And 10 years ago, their parents disappeared. So they raise themselves. They are very tight sisters together. And all of a sudden, we get some sinister forces, and the youngest sister, Spring, has to try to make certain that she can put all of these people back together, this family back together. It looks like if you go to, I'm seeing a site that I probably shouldn't be talking about, but if you go to Fangoria, it does have an exclusive look at a few of the
Mm.
pages, the cover art. I'm intrigued, and I think this is right up your alley. I think you'll love it.
Yeah.
So definitely go check it out. I'm ready for it to come out, and hopefully, if it's a good series, we may even get a movie or a show about it. Those things always get me excited when I see new horror comics, and I go, maybe they'll make a show out of it. They did with Outcast, and it didn't
Yeah.
track, unfortunately, um, despite having a pretty good cast. But who knows? This one might actually be a good fit for TV once it gets a good kind of cult following. But I would definitely check that out. The seasons.
Yeah. No, definitely. That seems horror detectives. That's like right up my alley.
That's
So
all of your stuff. I know.
yeah, no, I was like,
Do
seriously,
I know you or do I know
you
you?
do
This
know
is
me. And Rick Remender is a good writer, so it's
he really
definitely
is.
definitely something I'd definitely be into. So yeah, I will be checking that out for sure. So thank you.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, the only thing I have left is just something that is coming out today on the day that this drops on Wednesday, October 16th. Hush is supposedly coming back to theaters.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
I, I looked it up. It doesn't seem to be coming anywhere in my area, at least in none of my AMC's yet. They haven't posted it anywhere. So I don't know where it's coming, but I mean, I love that. And this is Mike Flanagan's Hush, for anybody who doesn't know. But it's, it's already out on, it's out on VOD to buy or rent. You can actually stream it currently on Shutter right now. It's available on
Hmm.
Shutter. And the 4K disc is coming out in, I believe, November. So I've already pre-ordered it. So, but it is supposed to be coming out to movie theaters as well today. So check your local listings if you're interested and see if it's going to be anywhere near you. Because it sounds like I mean, it's coming to theaters for the first time. It was never in theaters. It dropped
Right.
on Netflix originally.
Netflix.
So I mean, it'd be cool if it gets a little bit of a theatrical run there. So, um, and then I think that was all I had. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it. I had
Okay.
the
There
bare
was something
bones
else
this
I was
week.
going to mention too, and I forgot what I was going to mention about. I said I was going to talk about it at the end.
It had
Um,
to do with Hellboy.
no, I don't remember what it was now.
Hmm.
I mean, it's I guess not a big deal. Um, but yeah, no, this should be an interesting week. I'm going to go see Terrifier 3 on Monday, and then I'm going to go see Smile 2 on Thursday. So I'll have a little bit more to talk about, at least new movie wise, on our next episode.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be a lot of fun. Um, so I've never been a huge Terrifier person. The first one didn't do anything for me. The second one was better. I still didn't care all that much about it, but the second movie was better for me. And
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on it. I love that Terrifier is like tearing up like the box office for an unrated independent horror movie, that it's actually beating everything this weekend.
Isn't that wild?
That is
It
crazy that it's just
2024 for horror has been
like, oh my
outstanding.
god, like 2024 has just been fantastic for horror. It's made my top 10 so freaking difficult. I mean, not really, because like I've had it pretty solid, but things will dip in here and there. Like I had something come in late, and I have a feeling that Smile 2 could jump in there, depending on how good it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been a really good year. I mean, and, like even saying that, like my top 20 is full of 4-star rated films. That's how good it's been this year. It's just that
Hmm.
everything has been so good that I could easily make a top 20 of 4-star rated
But
movies.
yeah, you're right to have something
Um,
like Terrifier being at the top,
I,
like beating out all of these movies like
beating out
Joker.
Joker, and and everything else is just like wild. Like it's just, and don't get me wrong, I'm not surprised that Joker isn't doing well. I was surprised that the original Joker did as well as it did. But and I'm not hating on Joker. I just didn't think it was a property that would do well. Um, so it's definitely interesting for sure. So I'm excited. Hopefully I saw somebody say that that echoed my feelings. My co-host over on Horrific Heroes, Steve, he had said he echoed my feelings on 1 and 2, and then had gone and seen 3 and said it was really good. And I was like, well, crap, I'm gonna have to go see it now. So so I was like, all right, I'm in. So you got me. But
Well, I'll look forward to you telling us about it next
yeah.
week as much as you can,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
without
definitely.
spoiling.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on to the rest of the show, why don't you let everyone know what's going on your show this week?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm still continuing with my Blacktober series, and I decided this year I was going to focus more on um, prominent Black horror survivor characters. But this week I was not able to do that because I wanted to talk about Night of the Living Dead, both the original and the remake. And
Oh, okay.
those movies are old enough that, you guys, unfortunately, it's going to be a spoiler filled one because
Yeah.
the character that I want to talk about didn't quite make it. And I just wanted to talk about the differences and the similarities between both of these versions and why I love the character of Ben from this movie so freaking much. So
Right.
that's pretty much what I'm talking about this week.
All right. Cool. Yeah, I need to watch the remake. I have still never seen the remake, but I've heard it's pretty good. So
It is. It
I'm
is.
interested in checking that out. So,
Okay.
but yeah, um, that's awesome. Go check her out. Don't forget her podcast is Donna the Dead, THA. Go follow her on Instagram because that's where she mostly posts at, um, which is probably smart since Twitter is a hellhole right now.
The dumpster
Um,
fire over there.
oh, it's
I'm
so
trying
much.
my best to stay, but I can't. I don't know how much
Oh
longer I
no,
can
I
do it.
don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. It is fully a dumpster fire over there. It's just it's and it gets worse every day. If it
Yeah,
weren't for
and
if it weren't for the fact that like there's so many people who actually post there and like and everything, then I would probably just dump it too. But I'm
yeah.
pretty close to dumping it as it is. But and you know,
Yeah, I think the next couple of weeks, especially getting closer to the election, it's just going to get
oh, it's gonna
really
get way worse. Yeah, for
bad. So
sure.
yeah, so if
Yeah.
I'm not there as much, that'll be why. I mean, I literally go there, you guys, just to make certain that you guys know that I have an episode up if you are not
Yeah.
following me on Instagram. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see myself staying there too much
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like either Threads or Blue Sky is going to be the better alternative soon. So we'll see what happens with either one of those
Yeah,
locations as well. So, but all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on again, as you've been doing every week. It's always a fun time talking to you,
absolutely.
and we'll see you again next week. On today's episode, we're continuing our series on 80s kindertrauma with the Goonies and the Monster Squad. Joining me for this episode is Angel Krause. Angel is the host of the Voices from the Mausoleum YouTube channel, where she talks about all kinds of horror stuff, including movies, books, and video games. Welcome back to the show, Angel.
Thanks, Robert. Excited to be here as always. Always fun.
Yeah, it's always good to have you on here. And
Yeah.
now I'm part of the Voices from the Mausoleum family, so
Yes.
I get to
Yeah.
do my show with Steve, our horrific heroes,
Yeah.
which we should have brand new episodes for the Agatha All Along going on right now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
definitely have to go check those out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always good to talk to you. We always have a good time.
Oh, yeah. Likewise, for sure.
You're one of the only people I know that actually lives in the same state as I do,
Yeah, we're good. It's
and we've
just me
actually
and
met
you.
up. So yeah, yeah, I know. I think it is just you and you. It's so funny.
Everybody else lives way away.
Yeah, always, always.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, we've actually met up and had a good time on a weird, very weird ghost hunt thing.
Making memories.
It was a good time hanging out with you. Is all I've
It
got to say
was.
about
No,
that situation.
no, it was for sure. No, it was.
But anyway, but we are here to talk about the Goonies and the Monster Squad, two 80s, not really horror movies. I mean, Monster Squad is more horror. Goonies is
Sure.
more like an adventure.
Adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. But they kind of play in the same arena, the kind of
Yeah.
same tones and stuff. It's just a bunch of kids, in a group that are trying to save the day. And so let's go ahead and start with the Goonies since that came out first. That one came out in 1985. It was written by Christopher Columbus, directed by Richard Donner, and produced by Steven Spielberg. So it definitely has a very nice pedigree to it.
Oh, yeah.
All of those people are very good in
Oh,
what they
yeah.
do.
Yep.
And this one stars Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Carrie Green, Kei Hua Kwan, and Martha Plimpton. And am I missing anybody? Uh, um, Jeff Cohen, I think his name is. Um, could be wrong on that. I know it's Cohen something. Um, yes, Jeff Cohen. Um, they are all the kids who are all involved in it. Um, an interesting little side thing about both of these movies is that they both actually star Mary Ellen Trainor as the main mom
Yeah.
of the characters. So that was a funny little
Yeah.
unintentional double feature treat.
That's
So
funny. Yeah.
yeah,
What are the
she
odds?
yeah, well, she's well known for being a Richard Donner like frequent actor. She was in that. She was in the first couple of Lethal Weapon movies.
Oh, okay.
I believe she's also in Scrooged as well.
So they
So
just work together a lot.
yeah, so they just it's I actually really like it when directors reuse actors and just
Yeah.
they're obviously friends and it's nice to see them pop up in future projects.
Yeah. No.
So yeah, so this one is a total classic. The Goonies is super well known for being just like this super classic 80s movie.
Mm.
This adventure where these kids are trying to save their homes in Astoria, Oregon, which they actually filmed on location there. Um
Oh,
and yeah, it was really interesting to find out. Um and so they go on search for this one-eyed Willie's treasure. um
yeah.
and it's funny too because there was a moment where the movie didn't work for me anymore. Like because I grew up with it and it worked well as a kid. Like it's a great kids movie.
Sure.
But as I got older, like I guess I just kind of got like jaded with it. But like
Huh.
rewatching it tonight, like to be fair, I was kind of looking up trivia at the same time, like I always do. But it was a lot more, I guess, kind of fun
Oh,
than
that's
the
good.
like maybe the last time I watched it. So, I was glad that it kind of circled back around for me. So what about you? What's your history with this movie?
Yeah, The Goonies is one of my favorite adventure movies. And as you know, I'm a big horror fan. I tend to not make time for very many things, but there was a time
Right.
in my life where that wasn't always the case. And so I kind of attest like a lot of my reading habits and my horror love to a relationship I had with my sister because those were things that she nurtured in me. We went to the library once a week and we watched things we weren't supposed to watch, and we'd go to Blockbuster, we'd go to movie or Hollywood Video or whatever, right? So we had these kind of like those were things that I shared with her. But one of the things that she always introduced to me was movies that she grew up with because she's older than me.
Okay.
Um, Not substantially, that would have been rude, but she's older than me. She was, when my dad got custody of me, I was 6 years old and I think she was 18. So that's our age difference.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Well,
so
that's
quite,
substantial enough. I
it's
mean, yeah,
enough of a gap.
12
Yeah.
years is
So
a pretty good gap. Yeah.
yeah, so she had New Kids on the Block, and I had Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. So there's definitely differences.
Yeah.
But she introduced me to a lot of the '80s movies that she grew up with and watched, when they were newer and or brand new, and that included things like the Brat Pack movies, Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, Pretty in Pink, all those. But The Goonies was one of those that she had, a VHS of, and it was one that she introduced me to, and it became like an instant favorite, and we watched it all the time together, and that was kind of like my introduction. And I think when you watch things like that as a kid, or even honestly in my opinion as like a preteen or an early teenager, I feel like you find yourself wanting to have those things. Like I had friends. I'm not like I wasn't too much of a social I was when I became older, but that's because I was grumpy. But when I was younger,
You and I just have so much in common. It's ridiculous.
I was like, as I got older, I just became very cynical and nobody wanted to be around me. I had to find my peace and joy again later in life. But
Yeah,
no,
that's kind of me. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and when I was a kid, my parents didn't really nurture friendships. They were very strict about me spending time with people that weren't family, and that's just how I was raised. And
Oh
so
wow.
I never had like super big friend circles of people I just got to hang out with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grew up a kid in the 90s. I was born in 88. So a different time. The 80s,
Yeah.
you were allowed to just go out and hang out with your friends, but then bad things started happening to kids, and that
Yeah.
kind of very different. And so, so I remember being like when I watched it, I was like, man, I want that. Like I want to have
Yeah.
like a group of mixed matched friends and to go on this adventure and become like a stronger group of friends because of it. And you find yourself like wanting to have those things when you're younger because you may not have, any type of things like that in your day-to-day life. And as I've grown up now, I find humor in things I didn't catch as a kid, which I think is the case with most of these kind of movies. Um And it's still just a really fun movie. I mean, I didn't need to revisit it because I've seen it so many times, but it's
Right.
probably been, I don't know, maybe at least 2 years or so since I've seen it the last time. But it was one that it was just like a constant rewatch for me because it's just very nostalgic. It reminds me of simpler times of summers with my sister and watching stuff and getting introduced to things I'd never seen before and spending time with her and making fake movie money and pretending we're at the movie theater. And just like those summer memories of
Yeah.
with her and bonding with her and my younger sister as well, because she was always with us as well. But it's a very feel good comfort movie for me.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, no, thinking about that, yeah, I think I'm a couple of years older than even your sister. Because yeah, you said you were born in 88. I was born in 74. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes me 14 years older than you.
Yeah. So
And
too,
so
yeah.
yeah. So so when this movie came out, I was 11. Um so yeah, this was, but I mean, yeah, that's what is so interesting too, is that I don't know if that you can make movies nowadays. Anytime I see a movie, you don't really see like groups of kid movies going on adventure type things set in the current time.
But
Um,
no, not unless
because
there's a serial killer involved or
yeah,
something
because
else.
like yeah, because you just the kids don't have that
Mm-mm.
like that I want to say freedom, but it's not even the freedom, it's the lack of adult supervision.
Yeah.
um and I've talked about this in
Exactly.
earlier episodes of this too, is just because like these, like we lived in a different time in the 80s. It was
Yeah.
such a weird transition period because
Mhm.
you did have this wait, I mean, you can see it. You watch it nowadays on Stranger Things. Like
Yeah.
Stranger Things is very much a throwback to
Oh, yeah.
that Spielberg 80s vibe.
Yep.
And where the kids are just doing their own thing and the parents are just like, I don't know what's
They
going
have
on.
no idea where their
Yeah.
children are.
They have
Yeah.
no idea. And so, and that's how it was. Like, I didn't get up to those shenanigans because I was like I was a homebody kid. Like if I could get away with it, my parents always pushed me outside and said, "Okay, don't come back until the lights come on." And
Yeah. That's
so
yeah.
yeah, so it was such a weird time. And but then it was also the era of Satanic Panic and Stranger Danger. Like
Sure.
the rise in serial killers was during the 80s.
Yep.
And so it was still like parents, like it was so weird that they were still pushing us outside to go do things.
Yeah, just
When
get out of my face for a little while.
Yeah, get out of my face for a little while,
Oh
just
yeah.
don't get in anybody's van. um
Yeah.
so it was just a weird time.
No, for
But
sure.
yeah, no, these two movies very much are very indicative of that time period of just like
Oh yeah.
kids just doing their thing, parents completely oblivious,
No idea.
and no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
um
No, for sure.
but this this one was one of those ones that definitely was, I watched a lot as a kid.
Mhm.
Because I mean it was a good time.
Yeah.
It's a
No, I
fun
did too.
movie. It's got a good cast. Corey Feldman, had just been in a couple other things previous to this. He was like in Friday the 13th Part 4,
Yep.
not too long before this. He goes on to do The Lost Boys in a couple
Lost
of years
Boys.
from this. He goes
Yeah.
on to do Stand By Me. So
Yeah.
he was kind of like the most famous kid of the bunch. This was like Sean Astin and Josh Brolin's and Cary Green's like first movies. So they all like just popped up in this movie for the first time, and they all do a great job. It was actually kind of
Oh, they do.
really fun going back. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of screaming kid stuff in here, and it just kind of, that part kind of drove me nuts. But
Yeah.
you got to know. I mean, they're racing away from like these crazy kind of like almost like very bad stereotypical Italian criminal family.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
both of
true.
these both of these movies have not aged well.
Yeah.
Monster Squad especially, but we'll get into that.
Yes. Lots to
But
say there. Yeah.
yeah. But this one's not too bad. This one you can kind of gloss over some of that stuff. It's not too bad.
No,
Um,
sure. I would agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this one's just, it's so much fun. It's just it's got some scary moments. It's very much, it feels like it's got that it's like kids on an Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's why it's fun in that way is, you can look at it from that perspective of being like, especially if you were a kid during that time, you're just like, oh my God, that would be so fun to go find a pirate ship, getting
No.
into weird, dangerous situations. And you just like, you would never like want to really do that, but at the same time, you kind of did. So
Yeah. Like the danger seemed worth it for the findings and to living in a movie, I guess like mindset, you just assume that you're gonna get out of it okay. Like it's not like you're less likely to die in those kinds of circumstances. So
right.
the danger isn't as real, as like the little bit of stress you get, but the reward is being, more better than that.
Right. But like meanwhile, they're like having to navigate all these like literal death traps.
Oh my God,
And
Jesus. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then like and the thing and those like those the boulders that fell down like on top, like almost on top of them. And and then
Mhm.
meanwhile they're having to try and get away from these like crazy, people trying to shoot at them constantly.
Yeah.
Um and so it's just nuts. It's just such a weird, fun movie. That it like I said, there was a weird moment there where it did bother me a little bit, and I was just kind of like, why this movie doesn't work for me as an adult? But no, it still
Yeah.
kind of does. So I guess I had to be right back in the right mindset again. Um,
Yeah.
but part,
I can see
but
that.
part of that part of that was too also I went through my grumpy period like you did.
Yeah.
My 20s and 30s and probably part of my 40s were pretty grumpy.
Yeah.
But which I don't know why. I think I just had low grade depression
Yeah.
during those years.
No, for
Um
sure. No, yeah, that was definitely what my issue was. And I also had like a lot of trauma that I was keeping in and just
yeah.
things I wasn't dealing with. And I didn't have emotionally available parents. So, that's not really,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So no,
No.
same thing. Yeah. It
I
was,
have a toxic mom, so I completely understand.
yep, same. Yeah, same. And so I just, you just feel angry all the time and upset for no reason, but there is a reason. It just
Yeah,
feels like there's no reason, but then,
yeah,
eventually, hopefully, you get out of it or you find things that help you realize some of that stuff. But yeah, yeah, I was
yeah,
the same way. I never felt like this didn't bring joy in a sense, but I think there was also probably a large chunk of my adult life where I just didn't watch it at all.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it
Oh
may have
no,
been
there's
for similar reasons where it just didn't really feel appealing anymore for a while.
oh yeah, no, I had the same thing that where it's been years since I've seen it.
Yeah.
I just bought it not too long ago, or I got it as a gift actually. It was on my list of movies
Oh yeah.
on Amazon, and so I think my daughter bought it for me. And so yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I have it on 4K, so that's good. For when I do want to watch it, and then it
Yeah.
came around and I needed it. So
Yeah.
um, so yeah, no, but yeah, no, it's a fun movie. It's really interesting, kind of set in the time period, like of when it was made, because this is like 1985. This is like after Richard Donner has made like The Omen and the first two Superman movies,
Mhm.
and just before he's about to start doing the Lethal Weapon series. So it's this weird little movie. It's very like it's this kind of transitionary movie for him in a lot of ways where he's like because Superman the super first two Superman movies have some very kind of silly comedic bits here and there, but this movie's just kind of really goofy in lots of little parts and stuff. And I mean partially that's part of the writing. Christopher Columbus is well known for doing you know kind of goofy silly things. I think could be wrong, but I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
I don't
he
know.
was the
I'm not good at that stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He wrote the screenplays for, Gremlins, The Goonies, Young Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
He directed Adventures in Babysitting. And
Oh,
yes,
okay.
this is what I was thinking. Yes, he wrote and directed Home Alone and Home Alone 2. So definitely has his stamp all over the 80s.
Yeah.
And so he's also the director of the first two Harry Potter movies, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
no, he so I mean, he definitely brings that comedic tone, and Richard Donner's no stranger to it. Obviously, the Lethal Weapon movies have a lot of um
humor.
humor in them as well.
Yeah. No, for
Um
sure.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's fun for that. Like there's nothing really like to me, I don't feel like there's anything overly necessarily bad with this movie in terms of
Sure.
it not aging too well. Like, you
Yeah.
take out a few things here and there. Um but overall it's fairly accepting, especially for a movie made in the 80s. Um
Yeah.
and one of the main characters is an Asian kid, and so he gets lots of screen time. He's not pushed aside or anything like that.
Sure.
So it's really a fun movie in that way. It does have those darker tones to it, which is why, for
Yeah.
an 80s kids movie, it's, it could be slightly traumatic. Because you've
Yeah.
got those people coming after them the whole time. And, like I said, there's, those moments where they are in peril. And so, that's why I wanted to include it in this series, was because it felt like, especially as a companion to the Monster Squad, it felt like it was one of those movies that was really popular and really big at the time, but like today I feel like they would make a similar movie, but they would tone it down a little bit. Like
Yeah.
the people wouldn't be shooting at them. The Fratellis wouldn't be shooting at them. They would just be like, just chasing after them, and
Yeah,
just,
it'd be very
you know,
like
be more
more like
comical.
yeah, more Scooby Dooey
Yeah,
than
exactly.
like yeah, than these crazy adults like trying to shoot children and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think it's a fun movie. I think for people who have already seen it, but to your point, like I don't know. Like I feel like if I showed this to like our kids, right, that were like the same age or are the same age as I was when I saw this for the first time, I think they'd be like, "Can we watch something else?" I don't think they'd be as enthralled.
I think, I think my son really likes it. I don't know if my daughter's actually watched it.
Yeah.
She probably has, but she probably only watched it once and didn't care, and has never watched it again, which is fine. I have seen people who've watched it, who've gone back to watch it, like maybe they missed it in the 80s, and they've gone back to watch it as adults, and
Yeah.
it doesn't connect with them. And I think that's where kind of like that little bit of a disconnect happens. Like if you didn't watch it as a kid, you don't have to
I
watch
can
it in the
see that.
80s, but I think you have to watch it as a kid for it to connect with
Yeah.
you. You have to be young enough to embrace the absurdities of it. So if you if
Yeah.
you
No, I can see that.
yeah, if you're not young enough, it just doesn't work. But you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fair.
Yeah.
Some movies are like that. There's lots of movies that I there's lots of movies that I don't watch nowadays as an adult that I did see as a kid. I look at them fondly, but I don't watch them anymore because I don't fully connect with them anymore. Stuff like Never Ending Story and stuff like that. So
Oh, I love that movie too, though. But yeah, I know
it's
what
a
you
good
mean.
movie, but it's one of those ones that I just don't care to watch anymore, unless I'm doing a podcast on it.
Right. No, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah.
So, but yeah. Um, I honestly I don't have a whole lot to say about the Goonies. It's a fun movie. It's
Yeah.
um it was great for its time, made quite a bit of money, became a cult movie, although I can't see how it becomes a cult classic when it was a popular movie. That's what I read
Right.
read on Wikipedia just now. I was like, it's since become a cult film. It was like it was reviewed positively and made 125 million on a budget of 19 million. It was a success all the way around. It was not a cult movie. It was
Yeah.
a hit.
Cult movies are
That was a
movies
hit.
that
Yeah,
were not well received and then were later appreciated by fan
exactly.
bases.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like The
Like the
Thing.
first, yeah, like the Thing or the first Terminator movie. Those
Hmm.
did not do well originally, and it wasn't
Yeah.
until like they hit video that people were like, "Oh yeah, this is
Oh,
actually a pretty
wait.
good
This
movie."
is
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, if I think of something else about the Goonies as we're going along, I'll circle back to that. But let's go ahead and talk about unless you have anything else you want to say about it. Um,
No, I'm with you. I think
okay.
I mean, short of like doing like a breakdown of the whole thing. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
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 No, I'm with you.
I mean, there is some fun trivia about it. Like there was a sequence. At the end, most people probably know this, but there was a sequence during the pirate ship stuff where there was supposed to be an octopus scene. They ended up cutting it because it was kind of I guess the octopus was a little too fake looking.
Oh.
And so they cut that, but there's a reference to it that still exists in the end, because Data says something about the octopus, and everybody's like,
Oh
what?
yeah, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
funny.
yeah. So yeah. So there's fun little trivia like that. But yeah, it's just a fun movie. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the Monster Squad, which came out, I believe, in 1987.
Yep.
Um, and this one was written by Shane Black and Fred Decker and directed by Fred Decker. Fred Decker hasn't directed very much, but he did direct also the movie Night of the Creeps, which is another classic 80s horror movie.
Yeah,
That one's a cult classic.
that is a cult classic. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah. So this is an interesting thing for me is that Monster Squad was a movie I knew about, heard a lot of people talk about, a lot of kids talking about it, but I never saw it in the 80s. For some reason, it slipped by me. Um, it was just very odd. And I think
Yeah.
possibly it was because it was horror related and I
Hmm.
wasn't as into horror at that time. Like I watched horror
Yeah.
movies, but it wasn't like I enjoyed them so much like I do now. So I didn't see this one until just a few years ago, for the
Yeah.
first time. So, and for me, this is one of those ones I think that could have potentially been a really fun movie for me and would have been one of those ones I held dearly, um if I had seen it as a kid, much like with
Yeah.
the Goonies. But because I saw it as an adult, I still appreciate it, but it doesn't hit as well for me as it might have. um
Yeah. I it's crazy because I saw it. I was older when I saw it. I definitely didn't get to see it as a kid, but I always thought, I always remembered thinking I thought it was a good movie, you know.
yeah.
But then I rewatched it today to get ready for the conversation, and I was like, this is not a good movie. Like I struggled because talk about things not aging well.
Oh
Also, like
no.
none of these kids are likable, I feel like. Like I feel like the Goonies had like a range of personalities and characteristics and stereotypes, but it was at least enough of like some commonalities between kids or people, like I don't know, like they felt I guess more relatable on some level as far as feeling realistic, but I just didn't like any of these kids. I mean, it's not like I don't know. Like I remembered feeling very differently about it. And then when I watched it today, I was like, oof, I don't know. Like I felt very different this time around. I don't know that I like it at all anymore. I think that I kind of like there was just too much in it that I couldn't ignore. And I was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
this hasn't aged very well on pretty much any level. So it's rough. And it's unfortunate because I'm a huge fan of Universal Monsters and
Right.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of obviously the monsters themselves, but there's a lot of scene setups that are similar to the original movie. So there's like a scene with the sister, whatever her name is, at
Phoebe.
the yeah, Phoebe, where she's at the water, she's at the bank,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Frankenstein comes up. Well, in the original Frankenstein movie, there's a scene just like that with a little
Yeah.
girl picking flowers. And so there's moments like that where I wanted to be like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love this. But then I just kept getting some of the other stuff when we would switch to dialogue parts or parts with the other characters where I was just like, bah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is one of those instances where if they remade it, like number one, I think there'd be a huge fan outcry because there's like lots of fan love for this movie, and I get it. Don't get me wrong, but
Sure.
I think that if they remade this one
Yeah.
and like I think that it would work honestly better, because you would clean up some of the issues that
Yeah.
I think that people would have with it in this day and age. There's a
Yep.
lot of like there's a lot of homophobia in it.
Yep. Yep.
There's the one kid is constantly just Horace, is his name. It's said in the beginning, but even his friends call him fat kid the whole time.
Yep.
So there's fat shaming, there's homophobia, there's like just like the fact that they have to get a virgin to read from this book, and then like they go to the sister rather than any of these boys who are likely virgins themselves.
And the
Um,
sister's like under the age of 10. I had a huge issue with that. I was like, that's not
well, but
how
that was
we.
the I was thinking of the other sister, the older sister of the other boy, who they first go to, who ends up not being a virgin.
Oh yeah, and she's like,
Yeah,
oh, he doesn't count. That one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
the blonde. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And then there's also the whole taking naked pictures of a girl and then showing
yeah,
them to everybody without consent. That really made me
yeah,
uncomfortable. I was like, wow,
yeah.
this is oof, rough.
No, there's just like there's a whole bunch
There's
of
a
stuff
lot of
in
stuff in it that's
this movie
very,
that
yeah.
just yeah, it does not age well. And like,
Yeah.
look, don't get me wrong, if you're a fan of this movie, I've got no problem with it. Enjoy
Sure,
it, have fun with
sure.
it. I'm not saying you're gross for liking it. You know, you like it how you like it. It's
Yeah.
whatever. There are
Yeah.
certain movies that I may say you're gross about for liking at this point, but this is not one of those.
Sure.
But it's just yeah, it was harder to watch. It was hard to watch the first time I watched it, and I remembered there being some of this.
I
But
didn't
this
remember any of
I
it.
think this is only the second time I've watched it, and I own it now because I bought it on 4K because I was just like, oh, let me get this. It's a classic, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And then I didn't remember like, and I do remember that there's lots of good stuff in there because there's a
there
ton of
is.
there's a ton of the good stuff outweighs the bad stuff. It's just that the bad stuff is so glaring. It's
Yeah,
hard when it
it's
happens. It's
harder
just
to
like
ignore.
it takes you out for a second. You're just like, oh God, stop doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because it keeps coming up. It doesn't just
yeah,
do something and then move on. It's constant
yeah,
throughout the film. So it's very like you
yeah,
can't ignore it because they keep bringing it back up.
yeah. And going back to
Yeah.
your thing about like the characters being unlikable and everything like that, I think part of it is like there's several characters in here who just don't have like any kind of discernible character of their own. At least in the Goonies, every single one of them was a distinct character themselves. They were well written enough to be these different characters. They had, and sure, they were archetypes and stuff like that. Like, I mean, they had the fat kid, they had Chunk in Goonies, like, and
Yep.
everything, and they called him Chunk. But that was like, and you knew that was because he was fat, but it wasn't literally fat kid.
Sure.
You know, and so that's why kind of like Monster Squad's just like a little too more on the nose with its like kind of
Yeah.
blatant stuff. And then like, you know, but like the only thing the archetypes you had was like, you know, the one kid was like really super nerdy about monster stuff, and then you had the, you know, the older tough kid, and you had the fat kid, and then there was the other friend that was just like, okay, what's his role? Because he's like literally
There's
just like, and then there was
yeah,
like another little kid that was part of the Monster Squad
they're
too.
one
That was
dimensional. Yeah.
yeah, and so like even the characters who are defined, they're defined more by like their very basic stereotypes rather than who they are as characters, and so it was just a
Yeah.
little bit too paper thin. And so like for me, it's definitely like I can't connect with any of them. Like maybe the main kid played by what is it, Andre Gower. Um
The one with the parents who are having the problems.
yeah, the one, the dad who's a cop, and uh
Yeah.
yeah, Andre Gower. Yeah, Sean, the one with the Stephen King rules t-shirt.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he like that, like he was okay. He was at least, but he was obviously the main character. So like of course he's gonna get like most of the character development and everything.
Yeah.
So
Most of the
uh,
dialogue, most of the
yeah.
scenes. Yeah. And I
Uh
think like to your point, like I think you put it very well because like, I would say that the characters in the Goonies feel very lived in.
yeah.
Whereas these characters feel like they just are just starting out in existence. Like they don't feel like
Right.
they've had
Yeah.
any like life experience or real things that have happened to them. It all
Yeah.
feels very very fake.
Well, and they feel very much just like caricature archetypes. You know, they're not anything more than just the characters that they are.
Yeah.
They serve a purpose for the story, but they don't feel like real characters that you can like, you know, and that I think that's why Goonies is infinitely more rewatchable and was a hit compared to something like this, which didn't was not a hit and did not have good reviews and everything like that. So I mean, this one's definitely a cult classic in that way, and definitely so much so that it was like wasn't very popular for a long time. Like it wasn't until I think the early 2000s when people started kind of re-going back to it and going, you know, obviously it probably still had fans from back then, but then those fans weren't as many and vocal as it became later. Um, so and then but yeah, I mean it's not a bad story. Like, obviously the story is like about Dracula, you know, for some weird reason. Oh, he's chasing the amulet, right? So he's chasing after this amulet to give him power, and so he creates this gang of monsters with the mummy, Frankenstein's monster, a werewolf, and the Gill Man, and
Right.
uh and so it's just it's a like it's great. It's like, like you said, it's a great Universal Monsters movie mashup. But even the monsters feel very one-dimensional.
Oh,
No
yeah. Like,
depth to them at all. I do like the fact that John Grease was playing the Wolfman, and he gave that a lot of pathos when he was human.
yeah.
That was really great. But
Yeah, I think that the monsters mirrored their originals in some ways. Like, they tried to really kind of push this, with the exception that the original Frankenstein monster, while innately neither good nor bad, did do some really bad things. But in
yeah,
this, they really tried to push the whole Frankenstein monster good thing, like,
yeah,
and there's with the Wolfman, like what you were saying, his sort of treatment of the role when he's in his human form is very Lon Chaney, like
yeah,
very just like, no, like you don't understand, I'm dangerous, you have to do something. Like that's very Lon Chaney Jr. And so like some of those things fit the originals, but the ones that like don't talk, so like the Mummy and the Gill Man, those are, I think, harder to encompass their original magic, I guess, because
right.
were reliant upon all of the other things around them, not just existing as the creature and the mummy. They were, the creature from the Black Lagoon is these beautiful underwater shots and this question of trying to be a part of humanity and being so close. There's a lot of layers to those movies. And when you oversimplify them and they're just these quiet, made up characters with, prosthetics and makeup on, it just doesn't hit the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's it's it's an interesting movie. It's very, I don't know. It's weird. It's I don't think it's a bad movie. I think the overall concept is really good. I think the execution comes off bad. Um
Yeah.
Especially for all the negative things that we did say about it. But
Sure.
I think those are things that could have been done better. And like, again, if somebody were to remake it or to do some kind of new version of it, not necessarily a remake, but a similar thing, I think that it could be more successful. Because it would be a lot of fun to see something like this done right, and done
I
well.
agree. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't, again,
Yeah.
it doesn't take away from this movie does have a lot of fun bits here and there through it. It's great when the one guy tries to drop Dracula out of the Bombay door and he just floats above it, and that part was funny. The
Yeah,
Wolfman's got
there's little
Nard's
things like,
bit. It's just lots of little things were add up to it being fun here and there. So
yeah,
um,
and I like the push on the intrigue of monsters, because like when they're doing the monster test and they like the addressing of like the whole like, is Frankenstein the name of the monster or the man? And I it was a very fun play on monsters as a subgenre
yeah,
of horror, because that is always the thing like people will correct you on, is like, oh, it was not the name of the monster. It's like, yeah, but also, monster has a lot of letters, and I'm not typing both of them out, and you knew what I meant. So we're not doing this. But it's a valid thing, because a lot of
right,
people, it's kind of like the Zelda Link thing, right? Like everybody, like people who didn't play the games, they assume that Zelda is the character you play, and it's
right,
not. It's the princess, that you're trying to get to. And so anyway, so it's just one of those kind of things. So like little nods to monster fandom, kind of
right.
peppered throughout the
Yeah.
storyline, really made for some fun moments too, because you're just like, huh, and or like when they're like, oh, um there's two ways. What are the two ways you can kill a werewolf? And he's like, silver bullet, yeah. And they're like, all right, what's the other one? And they're like, and they just start naming a
Yeah.
bunch of random stuff. And
And they
then at
don't
the end,
know. Yeah.
yeah, and then at the end he's like, see, there's only one way to kill a werewolf. And it was,
But there
so
was there was one way that they said it that they actually like did in the movie too. There was like, what if
It
you,
was the
drop him out of a window with a bomb?
the window, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And then that's
So
how they
there's
do it.
little like
Yeah.
tie-ins to, from the front end of the movie to the end of the movie and stuff like that that made it kind of fun. And my son watched a little bit of it. He was really intrigued with Frank. He likes Frankenstein. He thinks Frankenstein's cool. And so he was like really interested in some of those scenes and watching what, they were doing and stuff like that. But so there were bits of this that kept his attention even as a 6-year-old. That was kind of
Yeah.
interesting because he's a big monster fan in general. But so yeah, I mean it's definitely nothing against, I definitely don't hold this in very high regard. I think in overall, I probably honestly genuinely won't revisit it, but I understand given people who have grown up with this movie who saw it when they were kids and it has, or, for all we know, has special meaning or memories attached to it. I can appreciate and respect that. It just is definitely was a bummer to realize that it wasn't as good as I thought I remembered it being.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just for me personally, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, again, I think the good parts outweigh the bad overall. But like it's definitely a movie that is probably something I won't rewatch all that
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it is interesting. Like I said, Fred Dekker hasn't done much, but Shane Black has done quite a bit. He's the co-writer on this movie. A
Okay.
lot of people will recognize him as an 80s screenwriter. He made his fame in the 80s and 90s as a screenwriter. He tying back into Lethal Weapon, he actually wrote the first Lethal Weapon movie.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
more connections between these two movies. So he wrote that one. Went on to write some other stuff in the 80s and 90s, like The Last Boy Scout and The Last Action Hero. And then has become a director on his own as well. He has since directed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys, which are two original stories of his own. And then he's also directed Iron Man 3 and The Predator. So
Oh, okay. I knew the
yeah,
last two.
yeah. So
Yeah.
definitely, I like if you like crime fiction stuff. I don't know how much you do since you're a big horror person mostly. But if you like crime fiction stuff, if anybody in the audience likes crime fiction stuff, go check out Kiss Kiss Bang
Easy.
Bang and The
Okay.
Nice Guys. Those are a lot of fun.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so especially The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys is like I think his best work so far. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's a it this movie's okay. It's not great. It's got issues. But it's just good enough. I think, comparing it to the Goonies, I think the Goonies, even though again, I think if you don't watch the Goonies as a kid, I don't think you're gonna enjoy it as much.
Yeah.
Because I just think you need to have that kind of kid perspective to kind of really enjoy it. You just gotta, because otherwise it just does come off really silly and kind of grating at times.
Yeah. It's
So
kind of like the online meme where like once you reach like a certain age, you realize that you really are more on the side of the killer than the teenagers. That's really what happens. Because in your mind, you're like, especially if you have kids, you're like, oh, these damn kids. You know what I mean? Like you just,
hmm
you're just, your entire mentality about adventure and children doing things just completely shifts when you become a grown up. Like
yeah, because when we become an
it's,
adult, we're just tired and we don't want to go
yeah,
out and do anything anymore. Like, screw that noise.
yeah, yeah.
That's why that's why
It's
we're the
true.
parents in these movies where we're just like, I don't care where my kids are as long as they're not bothering me right now.
Yeah, it's just such a completely different mental shift than when you're younger and you can kind of still, or you are in that mindset, or you can still connect to it. Because otherwise, yeah, that just feels silly is a good way to put it. You just get into this place where you're like, these dumbass kids, like it's just different, like
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. No, absolutely agreed.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I mean it was an interesting double feature to check out.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All things considered. Um, it'll probably be quite a while before I rewatch these again. Um, but I own them both, and so they'll, be nicely sitting on my shelf ready when I'm waiting for when I'm ready for them.
Right.
Uh, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, it would, definitely, for 80s kids, I remember kids talking about this. Again, this wasn't one I saw. But this Monster Squad was one I did hear kids talking about, especially the Wolfman's Got Nards bit. Like, I don't know why
Yeah,
that
that's a
like
popular,
that was
yeah.
yeah, I mean, so much so that it's like the title of the documentary about the fandom of the the movie and stuff. And so it's just it was slightly big for the kids who did see it in that time period. They enjoyed it. But I didn't get to see it for whatever reason, and wasn't until much later. But yeah, no, I would say in terms of kinder trauma, I'm not sure how well that did. But again, I don't think there's a lot of this movie that I wouldn't say is for kids. There's, like I said, there's a lot of like I said, the homophobia alone, and
Yeah.
just some of the stuff that's in this, the fat shaming and everything else is just annoying.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're trying to raise kids to not be that way or look at the world that way, it's hard to give them content like that and then trying to deprogram the things that are said, because then you end up having
Yeah.
these conversations about like, well, everything you just heard is not okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like it'd be hard to introduce this. I mean, and the homophobia stuff's hard in general and never okay, but it was
Yeah.
a lot. It was a much harder pill to swallow being a queer person and watching
Yeah.
it and trying to like, because trying to make sure that my son is growing up with the right mentality about human beings and stuff. It would be really hard to show him something like this and have
Right.
to explain that the things he's seeing are not okay.
Right.
That would be difficult in
Yeah.
a more modern sense of like introducing this to a kid,
Yeah.
today in 2024.
I think that if you were to introduce this one to a kid, I think middle school would probably be the earliest.
Yeah, because then you can at least have the conversations.
Yeah, because I think at that point they kind of understand the world a little bit and understand what's right and wrong a bit more, and they can really fully appreciate, well, yeah, no, what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah,
and
no, for sure.
So
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree.
but yeah, no, like I said, still a fun double feature. And I'm glad we got to talk about it. Always good having you on the show. I got to get you on more.
Yeah, thanks for I'm always down to come chat with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, definitely. Why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Sure. So primarily, Steve and I are on YouTube. We have the YouTube channel is the main thing. If you search Voices from the Mausoleum, you'll find it. Social medias are pretty much the same. We're on Twitter and Instagram. I have a TikTok. I don't use it. We have a website, but it's free, so I don't know what the website link is. You have to go look at my bio. It's like Voices BD7, whatever. So times are hard. But yeah, I mean pretty much anywhere. We actually show up in Google now. So if you search Voices from the Mausoleum, it'll come up. It's pretty much everywhere. So wherever you want to find us, we're probably there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You seem most active on Twitter. So
yeah,
definitely go check her out there. She's from Mausoleum, nice and simple there. So
yes.
Yeah. So all right. Well, and definitely check out that YouTube channel. She's got lots and lots of content on there that her and Steve do, like lots
overwhelmingly
tons of different series, including my series. Don't forget that Horrific Heroes. We're currently doing the Agatha All Along series. We're putting those out every week, not too long after the episodes drop. So
yep.
All right. Well, thanks again, and it was great having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the Ko-fi page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.